Right, let's try that. Can anybody hear me? That's the third webcam, the second computer. Can anyone pick that up? So let me know if you can see me and if you can hear me. Okay, great. So first of all, thank you very much for hanging on there. We had a few technical issues, basically based around the audio issues. We've never had stuff like that happen before, so I do apologize. Hopefully you're all still hanging in there. I can see there are 24 viewers, so I understand we've got Ashley Marie, 84, Ernest VC, Erica Daniels, Adrian Christine Kelsey, okay, KOM Consultants, and a number of you. So fantastic. Looks like we're cooking with gas then, guys. So we'll get started. And my apologies for the technical breakdown there. So great. So let's go. So first of all, my name is Anthony Bradley. I am the regional manager at Griffith University for a number of countries. Namely Canada, the USA, Central and Eastern Europe, and all of Sub-Saharan Africa. So this time last week I was swimming in an ice-covered lake in Russia. Today I'm sitting in 28 degrees on the Gold Coast in Australia. So, Griffith University. We are a multi-campus, very internationalised university in the southeast corner of Queensland in Australia. We have roughly a student body of about 45,000, 25% of which are international students from more than 131 different countries. And our relationship with Canada is a pretty long-standing and a very, very healthy working relationship with Canadian students and Canadian institutions. So about 10 years ago, my predecessors in my role travelled the length and breadth of Canada, visiting a number of partner colleges, signing agreements, reviewing subject outlines, and then dovetailing the programs into our bachelor's degrees, so that Canadian students were able to make an easy transition from a 2-year or a 3-year diploma into our bachelor's degrees. And giving generous credit into these bachelors. Since then, of course, the whole education system has evolved, and now these colleges in Canada are now giving bachelor's degrees and associate degrees. So we've added to that whole evolution of the linkages by offering pathways into postgraduate programs, and there are all kinds of extra add-ons that have resulted from this long-standing relationship. So, the university is a comprehensive university, which basically means that it's not a faculty-specific university. So we offer bachelor's degree programs from everything, literally from A to Z, from accounting to zoology. The first articulations that we had out of Canada were into the education programs, and then that rapidly expanded from the business diplomas into the business degrees, communications into communications and journalism, police foundations into criminology, and so on. So we currently have about 300 new Canadians every year study at Griffith University, primarily aided and helped by KOM Consultants, who are hosting this webinar. And they are your go-to guys if you're interested in actually submitting an application or wanting to know a little bit about the university. They're Ontario based, they have an office in Hamilton, and they are very, very well equipped to give you answers to all your queries about studying at Griffith University. So what we'll do is I can give you a very brief overview of how the articulations work. And then if you are interested, you can submit a question. I can see your questions coming up on the chat box on my screen here, which was up until very recently crashing every 2 minutes. So if you want to keep your questions coming, that would be great. So essentially the way it works is we work off a block transfer system, which means if you are in Fanshawe College and you've done a diploma in business and it's a 2-year program, we will have dovetailed or reviewed that diploma program and married it into our bachelor's degree program, which will give you a varying range of credit. But in general, the rule of thumb is a 2-year diploma will give you 3 semesters of credit into a 3-year degree, which means you will be able to arrive in Australia and finish a bachelor's degree with us in 3 semesters, 1.5 academic years. Now, in some cases, we have married 3-year diplomas into 3-year degrees, allowing you to complete the bachelor's degree in 1 year. The Australian Qualifications Framework, which is our regulatory system, is currently reviewing a lot of our programs, not just Griffith University, but every one of the 39 universities in Australia's programs. And so many of these articulations are being reviewed, but replacement programs will be available and credit will still be there. So, like I said, please keep in touch with KOM. Have a look on the website, make sure that you're up to date with any changes, and we would love to see you on the campus. So a little bit about the university. We are ranked in the top 5% of universities in the world, which means that it's based on our research output, and it puts us up in the top 100 universities in the world that are 50 years old or younger. Now, the design JPYE 31. How long to complete the Design Futures program? That's a very good question. Now, the Design Futures program is currently a 4-year program with a 3-year exit point. Now, it sounds a bit strange, so what we're actually going to be doing is we are encouraging students to transfer from your diploma into a Bachelor of Digital Media. This is a 3-year program, and if you've done a 2-year diploma, you will be able to finish that in 3 semesters, subject to any changes. So you mentioned Design Futures. We are suggesting you look at the Bachelor of Digital Media, which is a similar degree, but it has a 3-year end point. The Design Futures is 1 year longer. Okay, how do college students handle university level programs? Will you get overwhelmed? Bryce, you're a popular participant in these webinars. The pedagogy involved in colleges in Canada and universities in Australia is slightly different, yes. So we find that Canadian students, they fit in. You come from English-speaking backgrounds and with a similar education heritage background, being a Commonwealth. But at the same time, you will hit the ground running. Particularly because you're not starting at the very beginning, you're articulating in very often into the end of the 2nd year, or even into the final year in some cases. So students need to pay attention during the orientation week when they are introduced to their academic conveners and their course coordinators to make sure that they are aware of the expectations on them. It's all too easy to sort of fall into the trap that you're on holiday, you're on the Gold Coast, you've got a beach down the road, you only have to attend 10 hours worth of lectures per week. But outside of that, there is a lot of expectation on you to do independent learning. You'll be part of study groups, you'll have to do your own assignments, you'll be expected to deliver presentations. So there's a lot of self-starter sort of attributes required of students. But this is not to say that we throw you to the lions when you arrive. You're looked after, you're picked up at the airport, you're taken to your residence, and you are given both academic and personal counselling as well if you need it. Okay, let's have a quick look. Are there any restrictions on working while at Griffith? Yes, there are restrictions on working, but you are entitled to work. So most of our international students work. We have 12,000 international students, and a lot of them do look for part-time work. Now, your student visa has an inbuilt work permit which entitles you to 40 hours of work over a 2-week period. And the work must be done on a part-time basis because your academic studies are your priority. Most students will find work in the tourism and hospitality industry, so in the local clubs or shops or restaurants or pubs. We have a number of students collecting trolleys in supermarkets, and minimum wage in Australia is about 17 or 18 American per hour. So yes, you can find work. The restrictions are simply on workload, not on the nature of the work. So if you can find a work paying $100 an hour, that's fantastic. But in that case, you simply are not allowed to go over the 40-hour time constraints. Okay, let me see. Any more messages? Right, the communications program, that's Rachel Canale. We have a Bachelor of Communications, Bachelor of Journalism, and the convener of that program is a professor called Professor Steve Stockwell, who's a very, very active and very engaged professor. If you actually look on the KOM website, you can see a communications-specific webinar that we recorded about 3 or 4 months ago, and that goes into details of exactly what the nature of the program is. But in terms of application of that degree, our program convener, Professor Stockwell, is always very happy to note that whenever you turn on the television or open a newspaper here, he invariably sees one of his students either presenting or the name on their credits in terms of the advertising and broadcasting rights, or even from a journalist perspective and submissions into the local newspaper. One of the things I should mention is that we are very aware and very cognizant of the fact that when you finish a bachelor's degree, you have nothing but a little bit of paper. So what we have tried to do is to incorporate WIL, which is Work Integrated Learning, into almost every single one of our bachelor's degrees. So if you're doing a Bachelor of Communications or a Bachelor of Business or a Bachelor of Human Services, there is a component of internship involved in almost every single one of those programs. Our business school, Griffith Business School, is affiliated to the Association of Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business, which means that we are audited and we are accredited by a consortium of world-ranking business schools. And it's not simply because of the reputation of the programs and the components of the delivery of the program, but also how we do community engagement. So we are linked with Deloitte, for example. If you're doing accounts, you'll get the opportunity to do internships and work placements in well-known companies that are in the area here. Sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's not paid, but essentially it means that when you graduate, you have a little bit of paper, your certificate, and you've got dirty hands from actually getting out there to apply the knowledge that you've learned at the university. Okay, let's have a look. 13 new message. 3 years, yes, so JPYE 3. You can do, so the Design Futures program is a 4-year program. Okay, the Bachelor of Design is 3 years. It basically means that when you apply for a 4-year Bachelor of Design Futures, you can exit on the 3rd point. But it's not explicit in your offer letter because it is not a standalone degree, even though you can do it. Now that sounds very confusing, and this is why we are encouraging students to choose the Bachelor of Digital Media instead, which is a set 3rd year exit point. How does residence work? Is that included in the tuition? If not, how much? Okay, Joseph Deramo. On our program listing and on our brochures, we keep tuition fee and living expenses separate. Okay, so when you make an application to Griffith University, and you can do that through KOM Consultants, your application comes to us, we review the application, and then depending on the entry requirements, we give you an offer or not. In most cases, you'll get an offer. So when you get an offer, you can then choose to accept it or not accept it. It's up to you. It's not obligatory to accept. If you choose to accept it, you sign the acceptance form and you send 1 semester's worth of tuition payment to us, and that cost is then listed on the offer letter. As soon as you receive what we call a confirmation of enrollment, then you are ready to apply for your visa. Okay, now Canadians can get visas. You can apply for them online. It doesn't take very long, a couple of days maximum, and then you can apply for accommodation. Now your living expenses are separate to the tuition fee. So if you're paying $21,000 per year for a business program, for example, we also mention that international students should budget about $18,000 per year for living costs. Now your living costs mean your airfare getting over here, your accommodation, your food, and your transport. Now obviously you can spend more than $18,000, and obviously you can spend less than $18,000, but most students will find that $18,000 is enough for a good life without being too extravagant or too frugal at the same time. So on-campus residence is between 250 to 350 a week, but that's catered. The minute you move off campus, you're in an independent organisation, you're independently signed up to tenants, to landlords, and those have different prices depending on where you're staying. And then you need to look after yourself in terms of catering and also getting into the university. So really, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If you're on campus, you don't need to worry about food and transport. If you're off campus, it's cheaper, but you do have to worry about getting here and paying for your own paying for your own food. Is tuition more expensive than Canadian tuition? At university, I'm not sure. That's something that Martin and his team at KOM can advise on. I'm not sure how much Canadian universities charge. We are more expensive than Canadian colleges, yes. So on average, our business degrees are about $21,000 per year. And then if you're doing medicine, you're looking at $54,000 per year. So it does range depending on what you're doing. Griffith University is not the most expensive or the cheapest university in Australia. We're a middle tier ranged university in terms of cost. If you choose to go and live down in Sydney or in Melbourne, you can add at least 20% onto your costings. So we are middle range. Right, any other question? How do we apply for the diploma to degree program? That is Torrevieja. Martin Kelly is the director of a company called KOM Consultants. That's actually the hosts of this particular webinar. I would say in the last 6 years they would have submitted upwards of 2,000 applications. So make sure you contact them, give them a ring, drop them a line. If you're in the Hamilton region, pop into the office and say hello to them, and they will talk you through the process. Essentially, it is a very, very simple process. You need an application form and you need your transcript from your college. That's pretty much it. But in terms of submitting the application, we like the I's to be dotted and the T's to be crossed. So please make sure that you do use our representatives, because they've been doing it now for a number of years. And it has proved to be the smoothest way of actually submitting applications. Does nursing fall under the $54,000 for tuition? Yes, it does. So nursing per year is about, off the top of my head, is about $25,000. Okay. Now, if you'll need to look at what you can do in terms of credit transfer into our nursing programs. But in answer to your question, Lauren. Yes, it falls well under the $54,000. $54,000 is the absolute top end. It's the medical program. Sorry for the multiple questions. We'll hold off till you get to mine. Sean, let's have a look. What was yours, Sean? I'm scrolling back. Sean, what was your question? Sean, just curious about what this compulsory summer semester is, if there are no courses during it. Sean, you're going to have to be more elaborate on that, because I'm not sure what the compulsory summer semester is that you're referring to. What program are you referring to in this? It must be quite specialised, because a compulsory summer program is quite a rarity. Most people like to be down the beach. Residence. I'll just talk about residence a little bit more, Joseph. We have 5 campuses, and we have on-campus accommodation in 4 of those campuses. Most Canadians choose to stay on the Gold Coast campus or the Nathan campus, and as soon as you receive an offer for us, that is when you need to hop onto our website and submit an application for on-campus accommodation. We like our newly arrived students to spend at least 1 semester on campus, allowing them to focus on their academic studies and not worrying about signing with landlords or any independent accommodation body. It also allows you to just roll out of bed at the last possible minute in the morning to make it to your classes on time without worrying about trains, planes or automobiles. Now, Masters of Journalism, and it says there's a summer semester. That summer semester, it may be part of the Masters of Journalism. I'll need to check up on that for you, Sean, but I'm not aware that it's compulsory. It's very rare that there is a compulsory summer semester. I'll have to check on that for you. In fact, I'll make a quick note of that to check for you, and I'll get back to Martin on it. Sorry, I can't answer that directly, Sean, but I'll follow up on that rather than sort of give you any misleading information. But congratulations on getting into the Masters of Journalism. How much would the education program cost? If you're doing a Master of Teaching, you'll at the moment it's about $23,500 per year. Now then, currently these prices are being reviewed, and the 2015 prices will be put out shortly, and we'll let you know as soon as that happens. Excuse me, and what I'm doing, I've actually got the chat screen on another screen here, so I'm just looking back through your questions. Does Griffith offer international scholarships? We do. We have international scholarships, but generally they sit at the research level. Okay, so if you are doing a PhD or a Master's by Research in an area that is of specific interest to Griffith University, that is where the likelihood of scholarships will arise. At undergrad, so at bachelor's level and at master's level, we don't really have scholarships. This year we've been running $500 early acceptance scholarships, which have all been filled up now, and so I don't actually want to give you any misleading information about that. We don't have academic scholarships at bachelor's level, I'm afraid. Having said that, I do believe you are eligible to take out OSAP loans and bring them overseas with you. My understanding is that if you want to take an OSAP loan overseas with you, it's not asset tested, and that works out at about $10,000 per year, I believe. In terms of offsetting costs, you can work here. So if you if you're working here on an international student visa, you are allowed to work for up to 40 hours per week during term time, per 2 weeks, per term time, and you're also allowed to work full time during the holidays. If you do a 2-year, if you study here for 2 years or more, you are eligible to stay in the country on a post-study work visa. So for those of you doing a 2-year master's program, you can stay at the end for 2 years to work in Australia. Okay, is the application process different for postgraduate studies? No, the application for postgraduate studies is identical to undergraduate studies unless it's research. If it's research, it does become a little bit more convoluted because you have to identify a supervisor first. But again, that is something that Martin and his team at KOM Consultants can help you with. My advice is that if you're interested in research, is to hop onto the research part of our website, the higher degrees by research, and go through the steps of application. This involves identifying a supervisor who is interested in working with you, structuring a thesis. All this has to be done before an application is submitted. If, however, it is a standard master's degree by coursework, the application process is identical to the undergraduate. I hope that answers your question, Chris. Torriviera, can we watch the beginning of the seminar if we've missed any, or to re-watch the seminar? If you mean this one, yes you can. I'm actually recording it at the moment, and this will sit for posterity's sake on KOM's website, along with all the other ones that we've done in the past. KOM Abroad, do we just send an email to KOM right now or call in the morning? Entirely up to you. To be honest, it must be nearly pushing 9 o'clock in Ontario in the evening now. Just hang off until the morning and give them a ring or send them an email. They'll be able to send you an application form, or they'll be able to talk you through the process. Or if you're in the Hamilton region, just go and walk into the office. Can you please explain the difference between international tourism degree and hotel management? The international tourism and hotel management. So essentially, what these are majors within a degree. Okay, so if you divide a bachelor's degree into 3 years, each year has 2 semesters, and each semester has 4 subjects. So the hotel management focuses on the finance, the commerce, the how you deal with administration side of things. The tourism will work at sustainable tourism, how you work with numbers in a sensitive environment, the globalization side of things. So they sort of do overlap, but they work as separate majors within a bachelor's degree. The tourism obviously focuses on tourism strategies, the advertising, the branding. Hotel management is much more about the administration, the running the books, the human resources side of things. If you go on to, I'll put a quick website up for you. I'll put a link up to, just a moment. I've just put a link up onto the chat box. If you click on that, you'll be able to drill down into the specific components of each of our programs. It will explain the actual full course structure, the core subjects, which means you have to do them, the elective subjects, which means you can choose from a range of them. That will give you a much more detailed explanation as to the components of each of these programs. Right, let's have a look at any other questions. What is the minimum GPA required? Now, Maria Teresa Perez, minimum GPA requirement for diploma to degree transfer is 65% or higher. We like it to be higher, but we would look at you if you're at 65%. Okay, that's a 4 out of a 7 scale. That would almost guarantee you then an offer into most of our diploma to degree transfers. Okay, let's have a look. You're graduate, so SEA 089, you're graduating with a 3-year advanced diploma in general business. How will that work? Okay, now if you've done a 3-year diploma, that transitions into our 3-year bachelor's degree usually by giving you 2 years of credit. So SEA 089, in general, the way we've done it in the past is that a 3-year diploma allows you 2 years of credit into a 3-year bachelor's degree, meaning you come into the final year. Now, as I mentioned, our programs are undergoing review according to the Australian Qualifications Framework, which affects all of Australia. But at the moment, I believe that that articulation is still available, and it has been in the past. So that is what an example of what I mean by block transfer. 3-year advanced diploma gives you 2-year credit. If you contact KOM and submit an application, we'll be able to check that for you for sure. But in general, rule of thumb, 3-year advanced diploma gives you 2 years of credit into a corresponding bachelor's degree. So as I said, what we've done is we've married certain programs together. You can't pick, for example, a bachelor's of engineering. It would have to go into a compatible program. Francesca Goldberg, is resident included in the payment of going to school for the specific program? No, it's not, I'm afraid. I mentioned that earlier on, is that we keep tuition and living expenses separate. How long does it take to complete a Griffith Master after a Canadian Bachelor in average? Erika Danielson. It depends. At the moment we have master's degrees of differing length. So in some cases you can finish a master's degree in 1 year, for example a Master of Business. You can finish a Master of Teaching in 1.5 years, and a Master of Engineering with the dual specialization is 2 years. So at the moment our master's programs differ in terms of length. From 2015, that is going to become a more formal arrangement of between 1.5 and 2 year programs. 1 year master's degrees will disappear, which is not such a good thing if you want to fast track a master's degree, but it is a good thing if you're looking for a post-study work visa, because as long as you have done a 2 year equivalent master's degree, you're entitled to a 2 year post-study work visa. You did a year of uni and then switched to a 2 year diploma. Will I be able to finish in a year? That's Rachel Canale. It depends. We would need to look at the transcripts of exactly what you've done. So if you've done you've completed 1 year at university plus a 2 year diploma, if those 3 years work together to compatibly give you 2 years of credit, that's fantastic. But we would need to look at exactly what you've done. We need to look at your transcripts. In that case, we wouldn't be able to automatically do block transfer because it's two separate programs that you've done. But having said that, we don't know until we actually see your transcript. There is a possibility that that would be the case. Can you do work in childcare while in Australia? Stephanie Couch. Yes, you can. However, you will need to apply for something called a blue card. Okay? If you're going to be working with anybody under the age of 18, you're going to need to apply for a blue card. That is also something that KOM can point you in the right direction towards. So it's an application form where you'll be requested to do like there'll be references and a police check involved. It might take a couple of months, but it certainly is something that can be done, and it's something worth. If that's what you're interested in doing, Stephanie, then it's something that you need to put in an application for as soon as it's possible because it might take a while. Okay, what else have we got? Other questions? Let's see. What programs are available for business program studies and what is them? So business is probably one of our biggest schools. So Griffith Business School offers a huge range of business programs. Let me give you a list of our business programs. So we have economics, event and sport management, finance and financial planning, franchising, government and international relations, hospitality and tourism, human resource management, international business, logistics and supply chain management, management, marketing, property and real estate, and sustainable business. Now each of those have within them a whole number of electives and core subjects that you can choose from. So as I mentioned before, our business school has a huge suite of offerings. So as I said, hop onto that link that I've just put up onto the chat box and you'll be able to drill down into all the programs. But we do have at least 12 majors that you can choose from at a business level. Okay. Can we find a job in our field of program? I mean, advertising would getting a BA of communications. Okay, Tori Vieira, that's an excellent question. It boils down to your proactivity. We're commonly known as the land of opportunity, but that's not to say that when you arrive we say, welcome to Australia, here's a job. If you are doing a bachelor's degree in that particular area, of course it will stand you in more stead when getting that sort of job. But you would need to take advantage of our careers and employment services here, and you'd need to be knocking on doors, sending emails, writing cover letters, and asking the relevant job companies here for that specific area of work. It has happened in the past, but it's not something I can guarantee. Obviously, if you're studying that area, it'll be something that it'll stand you in more stead if that's what you're looking for. Okay, sorry, already costing, but we'll have an. Sorry, I already asked a question, but I will have an advanced diploma in design. Now, an advanced diploma is 3 years. So in general, that will give you 2 years of credit. If I were you, how's that? JPYE31. My suggestion would be to send an application with your full transcript through to KOM and allow us to review exactly what you've done to see how much credit you would get. As I said, a 3-year advanced diploma generally gives 2 years of credit into a corresponding degree. So if you were to look at the Bachelor of Digital Media, there is a fair chance you would get 2 years worth of credit. But it's not something we would need to have a look at the transcript. How does resident work? Are they off campus at housing? Tori Vieira, you're full of questions, Tori. Residents, like I said, we have on-campus and off-campus accommodation. We recommend students look at on-campus accommodation for at least the first couple of months. Not only because we want you to focus on your academic studies and familiarizing yourself with studying in Australian universities, but because we don't want you applying for a tenancy online to an independent real estate company without having seen the picture of without seeing the house in person. A picture on the house on the internet may look very, very different when you arrive. So we strongly recommend you look at least a couple of months of on-campus accommodation, and then that will give you a little bit of time to find friends here and to look at the off-campus options here in person. But yes, there are plenty of off-campus accommodation options. 3 years for design futures. Okay, so the Bachelor of Design Futures is currently a 4-year program. You have a 3-year diploma. Now, potentially, you would get 2 years credit into that. The 4 years would be a Bachelor of Design Futures. You can exit at the 3rd year if you want. Okay, so there is a 3rd year exit point called a Bachelor of Design. The Bachelor of Design Futures is an extra year. Now, when you receive an offer, you are receiving an offer for the full 4 years. It's your option if you want to exit at the 3rd year. It's a rather strange setup we have with that at the moment, and we're trying to iron out the wrinkles, which is why we are encouraging students to look at the Bachelor of Digital Media. What happens in the summer semester if there is no courses listing for summer in the program? The reason why they don't list summer courses, Sean, is because they chop and change relatively quickly according to the needs and decisions made by the program convener. So what will happen is you would arrive here during orientation week, you would be introduced to an academic convener who would talk you through exactly what you would need to do during the summer semester. You would know in plenty of time. It would never be a case of you arriving here and wondering where everybody is and wondering what to do. We always make sure that you're given plenty of advance notice in terms of what it is that you're expected to do, where you have to go, and the programs you'll be expected to study. So you'll be introduced to an academic coordinator when you arrive, or at least an international student advisor. Can I stay and work in Australia after finishing a master's degree? What can I do to do that? Erica Danielson 1. As I said, the post-study work visa is only eligible to students that have done 2 years or more. So if your master's degree is 2 years in length, then yes, you are entitled to apply for a post-study work visa. Okay, that's something that is an automatic eligibility as long as you've done 2 years at master's level. If you've done 1.5 years, you may get it if it's an accelerated 2-year program, but if you've done 1 year, you won't get that option, I'm afraid. Okay. Anthony, can you please go back through the chats? Lots of questions came in. That one came in 22 minutes ago as well. Okay, let's have a look. Wow, 28 new messages. Do you have anything like OSAP in Australia? Franny 7, no we don't. The loans that you take out have to be taken out at your end. We don't have loan eligibility for international students in Australia. When do your semesters start, Rachel Canale? Our semesters start at the end of February for semester 1 and the end of July for semester 2. In some cases, you're able to start at either of those points, but in other cases, you can only start in semester 1. Our website will explain to you exactly what the starting date is for your program. Okay, let me run through. What about credit for years of industry work experience towards the Masters of Design future? In some cases, they will look at work experience, yes. You have to be very explicit about that on the application, and you have to have very explicit curriculum vitae plus references in order to qualify for work and industry experience. What about Gold Coast? There isn't any on-campus accommodation. The Gold Coast campus has the biggest on-campus accommodation availability. So if you actually go on to the Gold Coast section in our website and click on accommodation, just across the highway we have the University Village with a swimming pool, so you can live on campus on the Gold Coast campus, yes. Can my 2-year general business transfer into any business, or am I restricted to certain ones? You're not restricted to certain ones. You can actually choose whatever business program you want to go in. How block transfer works is that they will look at your transcript and they will select the program which gives you most transfer. You don't have to take that. You can take another business program which will give you less amount of fewer transfer credits. It just means that you might have to spend longer doing it. It simply boils down to when we review your application, we review your transcript, we will give you an offer into the program which gives you most credit transfer. You're not obliged to take that. You can take a different direction if you want to, but you will get fewer credit points. You are a wizard, Harry. What? That's a very good one. Actually, on that subject, the Harry Potter Appreciation Society is our newest club at Griffith University. I should mention that we've got a huge range of sporting and clubs and associations here, and it is recommended all students join those. Is it possible to take courses at Griffith that will be transferable to a Laureate University Environment program? I'm actually not sure. So Ryan Fig 1, if by that you mean that you're already studying at Wilfrid Laurier, then you most certainly can do what you're questioning. It's called a study abroad semester, and it means that you would come and do 4 subjects or 8 subjects, which is 1 semester, or 2 semesters, and then transfer those subjects back into your home institution. This is something that we do for about 300 to 400 US students every year. So we have a number of arrangements. In your second year, a lot of American students will come over and do 1 semester or 2 semesters and then transfer those credits back. That is certainly something that you can do from Wilfrid Laurier as well, as long as the course coordinator in Wilfrid Laurier recognizes those. So you have to make sure that your course coordinator in Laurier will recognize what we've done at Griffith University. Okay. Is there an international student residence, or will we be blended with other students? That sounds quite horrific, doesn't it? No, it's an international student residence. So you are going to be staying with pretty much everybody. You'll find Australians there, and you might find students from any number of over 130 different nationalities. And that's going to be the same in your classes as well. Like I said, we have a huge international profile, so you might find yourself in a class full of Bolivians, or you might find yourself sitting next to a Brazilian or an Ecuadorian or a US student or a German student. So we have a very large international profile, which allows you both an Australian experience and allows you insight into how other international students think and work as well. Okay, are the undergraduate degrees recognized in the US? Bridget Sarpong. That's a very, very good question. As I said, we have an international profile. When we Cricos code a new program, when we register a new program, our academics try to make sure that this is mobile. Okay, so there are a number of global accords. For example, if you do engineering, Australian engineering degrees are recognized in all the countries that are signatory to the Washington Accord. Business degrees are usually recognized in America because we belong to the AACSB accreditation system, which is the Association of Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business. The only time where you would need to have your program reviewed is if it is specifically a professional registration. So for example, teaching, nursing, some of the health sciences, social work. We have had hardly any problems at all with accreditation recognition, and in the cases where a student has come back saying, please can you tell my boss in America that it's an accredited program, it has come down to a letter from a registrar outlining exactly what the courses are. So a short answer to your question is that Griffith Universities and all Australian degrees are very, very mobile, but in the case of professional qualifications, in some cases you may need a conversion examination at the other end, or you may need a letter from our registrar. But in general, we've had no problems whatsoever. Sean, how easy is it to defer from semester 2 to semester 1? I was in school for semester 1. Very, very easy indeed. If you are applying through KOM Consultants, and I strongly recommend that you do, let them know that you want to defer. They will contact our admissions staff, and we just put a deferral note on your application. So it's very, very easy. Unless, of course, it's a quota program like dentistry or medicine, but I don't think yours is. Ernest VC, you have an advanced diploma for accounting, you want to take a Bachelor of Commerce. Financial planning. Yes, that's possible. That is possible, Ernest VC. Again, we need to look at your your transcript, so we can work out exactly how much credit. But yes, it is possible. Okay, 8 new messages. Do you have varsity athletics? We do, actually. In fact, the Gold Coast is going to be hosting the 2018 Commonwealth Games, for which we're having part of the Athletes Village built on our campus. So Australia is it's a sport-crazy country, and the university has athletics, rugby, cricket. I know Canadians love cricket. We have swimming, we have basketball, so most sports are catered for here. What we don't have is sporting scholarships. We don't do what the United States universities do. So we separate academic merit from sporting merit. How many and how long are the breaks? Will there be any time to travel between the semesters? Absolutely. So each semester is 18 weeks long. Okay? So our summer program, our summer semester, runs from December, January, and most of February. So you've got nearly 10 weeks there. So you can have a long break over summer, and our winter break is about 4 or 5 weeks. But you also have term breaks in between for exam preparation as well. So there's plenty of time to travel. And it's something that we would recommend you do to get out and see the beautiful country. Okay. For the Masters of Aviation, does this course allow for work at the airport as part of school? Again, this is something that the work components you'll need to discuss with the school. If it is that specific, they'll probably be work integrated learning as part of the program. But in terms of work to make money as part-time work at the airport, that will boil down to your proactivity. So have a chat with the head of school and say this is what you want to do, and see if they can facilitate that. Right, are there any questions that I haven't covered? I'm just going back over the questions here, everybody. Questions have slowed down. There's been no mention of sharks or spiders. No questions about our exotic wildlife? If you look at the picture behind me, the university is located around about here. So we're actually relatively close to the ocean. So those of you that want to move out away from residence in your second semester, by all means take advantage of the apartments available down near the sea. We actually have a light rail transit, a tram, which has just started working here, which will be travelling from the university right the way down to the apartments near the sea. Is there an internship for the tourism? Yes, Joseph, there is an internship. We don't call them internships though, we call it work integrated learning. Okay, an internship gives the impression that it's a set money-making component, whereas work integrated learning is more about work experience, and in some cases it's paid and in some cases it's not paid. It depends on the structure of the program and how much hard work the conveners put into arranging that particular setup. But one of the things that we do focus on is work integrated learning and industrial engagement. Well, should I be worried about snakes and sharks? No, not at all. If I put that question in reverse, Tori, should I be worried about being attacked by mooses and bears if I come to Ontario? If I ask that question, you guys will laugh, and it's the same here. Look, we have never had a student attacked by a shark or bitten by a snake. The biggest problem for Canadians coming here is that we drive on the correct side of the road, which means when you go to walk across the road, you tend to look the wrong way. So that's been the biggest issue for international students here. But the snakes and the sharks, they're out there, but they have got absolutely no interest in humans. How is the transport to Newcastle and Sydney? So that's an interesting question, Erica. Sydney is about 1,000 kilometers south, okay, and Newcastle is about 850 kilometers south. You can hop on a bus. There are plenty of coach terminals and bus terminals you can hop on. You can take the train. The train is more of a tourist venture here. It's stops and starts all the way down. Or you can simply drive. A lot of my friends actually will drive down. They will leave Friday afternoon, drive for 10 hours straight, get to Sydney, spend the weekend there and drive back. So people do, just like in Canada, people are prepared to drive long distances. Or you can just hop on a flight for an hour. How is the feedback from international students that graduate? That's a very good question, Ernest. I mentioned our rankings earlier on, and we are, we're very proud to say we're in the top 5%. That is basically research output. We also have another ranking system called the ISB, which is the International Student Barometer. Now, this is a survey that goes out to students about student satisfaction, and that covers things like careers outcomes, internet, catering, security. So it encompasses extrinsic values of studying in Australia. And the feedback we have had about Griffith is that their degree has allowed them, has given them an edge when they get back to their home country. There is one Canadian guy, a chap called Braden Ockamore, who frequently tells us about the story. He did his marketing program here. He went back to Canada, and in his job interview, he beat out 5 local candidates simply on the strength of having an international component to his study. So what we're finding is that an international, so you do a very good diploma in Canada, you turn it into a very good degree with us in Australia, and then when you go back, you are looked upon very, very favorably by interviewers and employers, simply because you have that international component. You've got a totally different insight into how the world works than somebody that hasn't got out of their own backyard. Can I volunteer on campus? Erica, we would love you to volunteer on campus. We have something called the Griffith Mates program, where we are looking for volunteers for local events, volunteers for local seminars. There are leadership programs that we have here. What else do? We do things like blogging, so we're looking for students to blog about their experiences back home. So we loved the idea that students would want to actually volunteer for certain things, and if you announce that you're interested in that, we'd welcome that with open arms. We have a very, very robust organisation here called the Canadian Students Association. You can hop onto your Facebook page and put CSA Griffith, and you'll be able to join that remotely and ask questions and get impartial answers. But certainly volunteering is something we really do look at very, very favourably indeed. Okay, everybody. Well, the questions seem to slow down. I always, whenever people start asking about snakes and sharks, I can only assume that I've answered all the questions about the important things like study. So if there are no other questions, are there advertising will for the communication degree? Yes, I believe there are advertising work integrated learning. So advertising and broadcasting are components of the communication degrees, yes. That's Bridget. Alright guys, well look, it's been nearly an hour. KOM Consultants, based in Hamilton as I say, we work very, very closely across all sectors of application, student advisory services, pre-departure information, post-arrival information, and so don't think that by clicking off that's the end of the communication. I'm open to any questions. Martin and I work very, very closely on all sort of aspects. So if you do have any questions about applications or just anything at all about studying at Griffith University, pick up the phone. It's a free phone number for them. Knock on their door in Hamilton or send them an email. So make sure you do explore this opportunity, because one of the things that we are trying to push is that in any given time there are at least 10 million people on this planet at university. Every single one of them is looking for an edge. And believe me, an international component to your study will give you a certain edge over somebody that doesn't have it. So look, I hope that I've answered your questions. This is being recorded, so you can go back and sort of go over what I've said, or you can look around the room behind me and see what you think of the decor that we've got here. But we're open to questions and we'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to say goodbye. and we'll be doing these webinars, not only generic webinars like this, but we'll be doing discipline-specific webinars coming up as well. So the ones we tend to do: aviation, communication, criminology, business, education, human services, and social work. So those are the areas we focus on. If you have any requests for specific academic areas, let Martin know at KOM, and we'll see what we can do at this end. Okay, everybody, application deadlines. Canadians get visas very, very quickly. We recommend that you get your application in about 8 weeks before term starts. So if you're looking for a semester 1 start, get the application in before the end of the previous year. If you're looking for a semester 2 start, get your application in around April if you can. Okay, everybody, I'm going to say goodbye. See you later. Keep in touch, and if you're interested in discipline-specific webinars, keep an eye out on the KOM Consultants website. All the very best, guys. Sorry for the audio issues. Circumstances beyond my control. Bye-bye.